Hello there and welcome back to some more Forza Horizon 4. Today we are taking a look at the DLC cars for week number 14 of this game, aka the 27th of December 2018. As usual, we got two cars this week and they are both from quintessentially British manufacturers. We begin with the 2018 Morgan Areo GT, 362 horsepower, 361 foot-pound torque, 2,692 pounds of weight, front engine rear wheel drive, S1 class 811 PI. This is the new Morgan Areo GT, a convertible upgraded version of the Aero 8. In fact, this is going to be the final Aero 8, or one of the final Aero 8s ever made. That car, which has been around for around 20 years now, is finally going out of production, and this is the send-off model. I have to say, personally, I believe this is one of the ugliest cars in Forza Horizon 4 now. I hate Morgans. I really don't like the way they look. They're made out of wood, and yeah, I'm not a huge fan. Morgans seem to be an either you love them or you hate them sort of car, and I personally really don't like them. And that being said, on paper, and well, on the road as well, because I've driven this one a little bit, it's actually a really nice driving car. This has a BMW V8 under the bonnet. 362 horsepower by today's standards isn't all that much. But what this car does have in its favour is it is very lightweight, and it is actually a really grippy, nice handling car. I was sort of drifting around trying to get a thumbnail with it and so on and so forth, and rear tyres really do not want to let go. This car is super grippy, super tied to the road, which is really nice. In fact, I'd probably say it's better handling than the Corvette ZR1 from last week, which is ultimately very surprising. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to use it much purely based on the fact that it is very ugly. It even has 3 windscreen wipers, which is very weird. I've only ever seen that on the Jaguar E-Type as well. The front canards don't work for me. The Morgan Areo 8 is sort of one of those cars which has just had more stuff added to it over time, and it doesn't suit it. It doesn't suit being a convertible, and so on and so forth. It just really, I've never liked the car, especially with its sort of cross-eyed design. It does look really weird, but it is something a little bit different, and to be honest with you, as much as I don't like Morgans, I do have to admit this is a British-themed Horizon game. It did need Morgans, because they are sort of one of the car companies that truly represent what the British auto industry is all about. Old-fashioned cars made of wood with engines from foreign manufacturers. Next up, we have the 1970 Triumph TR6 PI, 150 horsepower, 164 foot-pound torque, 2,438 pounds of weight. Interestingly enough, this is actually almost the same weight as the Morgan. Front-engine rear-wheel drive, D-Class 419 PI. From the new modern Morgan to a traditional old Triumph. This one is actually quite interesting a car. The TR6 was the best-selling TR car of all time until the later TR7, which sort of succeeded this car, came along. Although, interestingly enough, most TR6s weren't actually sold here in the UK. About 8,000 of them were sold in the UK, and the rest of them went overseas. I believe there's about 90,000 total sold, most of those in sort of America, California, although there's quite a few of these sort of riding around in Europe and so on and so forth. 2.5 litre inline-6 engine does sound pretty good. I've actually driven this one as well, and I have to say this car drives like a muscle car. It feels really heavy, which is strange. It's very wallowy, it's very understeery, and it's not a very good car to drive overall. So it is sort of very American boaty feel, which I guess makes sense, because I assume this car was sort of built more to appeal to the American audience, because they had the Triumph 250 before this, so maybe they were sort of going towards that. It is a pretty good looking car, I will say that much for it, unlike the Morgan. But for me, the TR6, I don't know, it's not, I'm not a huge fan of Triumphs in general. I probably would have preferred the TR7 just because you can make fun of the TR7 for being, well, crap. And the TR6 really wasn't that crap, but it's not really notable in any way as well. At least with the Morgan, there's a lot to talk about there. You know, it's a good handling car, but it's ugly, and there's, you know, it's a very unique car. Well, it's the TR6, and indeed, we actually got a Triumph in the first ever DLC drop for this game. Neither of them, none of the Triumphs in this game really feel like they get used that much. They don't really get mentioned all that much. We have the Spitfire, we have a TR6, and I believe we have, what's the other car? Is it a TR2? Let's scroll to the end of here and find out. TR3B. Yeah, neither car's really noteworthy. Neither car really gets used all that much, so it's sort of, Yeah, I don't really know. Again, Triumph, it is sort of quintessentially British, but people just don't really seem to pay much attention to the Triumphs. A lot of the talk about this week's car pass, I've sort of seen more angled towards the Morgan. I've never really seen anyone talk about Triumph, actually, when it comes to the community of this game. So it's kind of strange that they would add another Triumph, but there you go, it's in the game now. One of Triumph's most famous models, but ultimately still like the Spitfire, which is probably their most well-known model. Just not all that remarkable. So there you go. That is the car pass for this week. Overall thoughts, not a fan. The Morgan, I do like seeing Morgan back in the game. As much as I don't like Morgan, I do accept the British game kind of needed to be in there. But the Euro GT is a very, very ugly car, but it is a very good driving car. Track Toys does seem like a little bit of a weird place to put this car. That's sort of where the Vantage GT12, the two Chevrolets from last week, and so on and so forth reside, and I don't quite know if it can keep up with those. But it is certainly an interesting car to go for a fun little drive-in. And the TR6, I mean, classic sports cars make sense for it. But ultimately, I don't really think anyone's going to really get much use out of the Triumph, and on top of that, it's just not a great driving car standard, which is a bit of a shame. So, there you go. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.